I'm gonna link, a video in the underbar for a movie, and it's got German subtitles, but it's in English basically. The movie is Sinners, and it's about the Maggies and their story and what ultimately happened to them, and me, uh, the fact that this is based on a true story, um, and that what's being reported here is not fiction. And in fact, many women that were considered wayward women were enslaved in England, for well up into the 1990s, and didn't gain freedom until the laundries closed down. And Protestants here in the United States had something for the longest time called Hepless House. And I don't really fully know how to pronounce it. It's a very strange name, but they had all these independent Baptist structures that were doing more or less not the same to very young women, many of whom hadn't even committed anywhere near the same levels of offenses that the women that ended up being shoved off into the laundries just for getting pregnant without having a ring on their finger, basically, or husbands that would basically stand by them in the whole process. So it seems that what society defaulted to and well up into the 90s was to just give their daughters away at that point, to dispose of them. And, apparently, nothing in Protestant or Catholic doctrine was good enough to make them think that they shouldn't do that, and family meant less than nothing to them. So these women were basically thrown away like a scourge onto these facilities that basically had them enslaved, for the church. Um, it doesn't ultimately matter to me either. Disorganized religion. I'm not a fan of disorganized Christianity either, because, like I said, the Bible is a disgustingly misogynistic book. There's no way to interpret Christianity that doesn't end up being a misogynistic document. Any way you read it, there's misogyny that's going to have to be baked into the experience. So disorganized religion isn't any better as an alternative to organized Christianity. Disorganized Christianity has all of the same problems. So that isn't an alternative either. The only rational option for me would be to basically become Wiccan if I want to still be spiritual, because then at least we can have goddesses and as above, so below, basically. Uh, so I've got no interest in ever returning to Jesus, and the shift is pretty permanent, and it was done, largely out of solidarity with women. Um, when I left religion, it was largely out of moral objections to how gay people were being treated and how women were being treated. But over time, I think one of those two has overtaken the other. It's my biggest concern, in that I think women's issues started to become progressively more and more central and important to me as I started to get older and older and older. I started to care more and more about the things that affected them, and started voting as an ally of women with my ballot at the ballot box, quite a while ago. And I'm not at all thrilled about Roe versus Wade and the Supreme Court decision, to say the least. It's I won't be affected as drastically as the women are, and I'm not the real victim in the situation. This is all, I don't need to be reminded of this. Like, it's not, but at the end of the day, the empathy has its own pain and own suffering that it causes me. You're not, and I'm only telling you this because I think that women shouldn't, have to feel all of these things alone. You know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna be going through miserable times, you should know that there are at least some of us men who are not, happy about this, and know that women are going to die as a result of all this, and it's just not a good time. And that one of my primary reasons for being concerned is that not everybody's going to be able to engage in abortion tourism. It's a rather cold comfort to me that my state will likely benefit, because here on the West Coast we've kept it legal. We had no intention of ever changing our laws that allowed for it. But so you want to come to Oregon and you can afford it, and have your procedure, you can do that very very easily. But not everybody can actually afford to do that. So those women are going to be horribly affected. Um, Another big thing that I did want to get off my chest though is just that if I've been voracious in criticizing Ryan Upchurch as a musician, it's not because I want to bounce off his clout or anything. I'm really not. I guess you could say like in a headspace that really wants the attention of that group of people in the first place. And so Ryan Upchurch gets a lot of attention that I wouldn't want anyway as an artist and a musician. So like if I'm criticizing him, it's not because I want to ride off his coattails or anything. It's I just I feel like artists like him engaged in payola, and I know that his fans will be incredibly insulted by that, but I don't think that he is actually as talented as a lot of the alternatives that are out there to his music. But of course, I'm not a big fan of country music in general, so I think that alternatives to country at large are better than almost everything that's in country. So they'll tell me that it's because you've never listened to anything other than urban country. That was what one of them ultimately said, and I just rolled my eyes. It was like the especially rural variant of it has that southern twang, and it's just so fucking insufferable. It's awful. Like my ears are bleeding bad. It doesn't get better when you get out of the urban, settings with all of it. And country is better when it's pop country than it will ever be as the most removed natural variant of it. And don't think of me as like an elitist. If anything, like I'm a big fan of folk music, and I can prove it on any given Sunday. So the truth of the matter is that I don't like country music, and folk music has a much long, like it goes back much 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 further in time ultimately, and uses a broader diversity of instruments to say the least than country does. But yeah, the Maggies and all the crap that they had to put up with and endure, and if Protestants will inevitably come back and clap back and be like, well, that's the Catholics, but that's a shit argument because the independent fundamentalist Baptist schools and shit that they've been doing for troubled teens are just as abusive as the Magdalene laundries have been. In fact, you can get put in one of those things for far lesser offenses than the Maggies did. So I mean, go ahead, look it up. Look up Heba House and what that motherfucker was doing. There's all kinds of reporting on it. Like my insinuation here is that all denominations of Christianity are inescapably misogynistic, so I don't want anything to do with any of it.